Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another video. I know I've been sitting on this for quite some time actually. About 5 or so weeks ago, it was the National Day here in Belgium, so I went out to the Belgian Royal Army Museum, and I'm like, alright, let's check out the World War I exhibition, because this is partly I say, pushed by the fact that the Battlefield 1 beta literally comes out in 1 or 2 days, probably this morning, I'm still not sure. And it's really interesting to see some of the things that we have here in Brussels, and I really urge you guys to go to your local museums as well, check it out. Here we see a lot of the decorations that were used by the end and post World War I, so here mostly 1925, so the interwar period. These are all originals as far as I know. They look very shiny, at least most of them. I like shiny things, I like shiny metals. You saw there at the beginning the first Belgian soldier that was shot, Mr. Fink. Unfortunately, he did not survive, and it's been terrible ever since Great War here. So here we see some of the insignias that were used by the different armies and divisions. So Anvers, the Battle of Antwerp. See the early campaigns, the defense of Antwerp. We're going to see the Battle of Yser, and of course the first Battle of Flanders, so Battle of Ypres, Flanders Fields. I know everybody remembers those kinds of things, and especially the music and all of the work really tied to it in terms of poetry. We see some of the Krupp German artillery. This is field artillery, but it was used for multiple jobs as well. A lot of times in the military, you're not fully equipped for what you're facing, and we'll see that especially with the tanks, because there is a tank expose. So here there's a lot of the equipment that the multiple nations were using. Here I'm going to limit myself to a lot of the factors that we see in Battlefield 1, because really without this the video would literally be a couple of hours long. But here we see the Americans, the BAR that introduced at the end, the M1903 Springfield. Of course, everybody knows these. You see the helmet, the armored helmet above. So there was some use of these kinds of armaments, not too much though. Your standard Rangers and GIs back then did wear these kinds of clothing. Still on the US, there's a pretty decent expose. So the kits that the soldiers received, a lot of the medical kits here that they used. And you see the boys in action, and 25 cents. That's a crap ton of money. There you go. And you see some of the women actually within the war, the messengers and the medics, and the infirmaries are very important within the war effort itself. I'm a bit surprised that we don't see any women presence in Battlefield 1. A bit of a shame, if you ask me. We go in, you see some of the workers will finish the job. They want to get things done. You see some of the grains. Now, the curious backstory to this, as we see the very nice 75mm shell that I think this is exactly the same shell that we see in Battlefield 1 during the reload parts. Thing is, the flour, the actual flour bags that they had, the companies, actually the mills, changed their designs because they realized that women in their homes were, because of the austerity measures, would use them to create clothing, and so they gave them these kind of different colored patterns. We saw some of the colonial troops. I'm not sure if those are going to be in Battlefield 1, but I'm pretty sure the Anzac troops at least have been mixed within the Brits, at least especially in the designs. Here's some of the Russian parts of the equipment here, so the Cossack equipment as well. You see the carbines, those are very much the same that you're going to be seeing on horseback as well in the game. Very interesting how it really reinvigorates the passion for history, especially the a destructive war. This one here, the Italians, obviously a major faction within the war as well, commanded by Mr. Luigi Codorna. My God, the amount of times. I mean, seriously, if you're really interested in World War I, you really should be going out and checking out the Great War YouTube channel. They follow up each week of the Great War. It's very interesting to see how everything's evolving, especially due to technology, because here you see some of the technology that was used. So this is an 80mm camera basically that was used back then. Some of the early radios, you very very Italian mobster kind of guy that they have. They're really big props to the props department here. No pun intended, because they're pretty sick of what they're doing. So the pigeons, game mode confirmed. They're used as messengers, obviously. Some of the grenades and some anti-personnel landmines. And I didn't really know that landmines were used too much, and apparently they weren't really used too much within the war itself, just because of the static way that it was fought. But there were some deployments of anti-personnel mines to some extent. So still some of the Italian equipment that we're gonna see here. So if you want to, you can pause and check out some of the names that I have on here. These are the Poles, and they are using this sort of shield, very heavy, from what I could tell. But apparently was used, and I hope it's not freaking overpowered like it is from what I've seen in Battlefield 1. It's like, imagine the Austro-Hungarian troops on the other side just screaming, "Oh my god, just so OP! Oh my god, ban it, dice, please fix." A few of the rations here, and you see the equipment that they use very put together last minute, especially when fighting during the winter part of the war. Of course, a lot of the Italians and the Austro-Hungarians on their own front in Trentino would fight on the mountains, and they had to scale the mountains, which, if you imagine it during the war, bombarding and all that such, very very tricky stuff. The Austro-Hungarian Empire here, and all of their equipment. I'm pretty sure, as you see the spiked helmet, that the Great War did a very good episode with an American gunsmith, if I believe correctly, where they explain a lot of the weaponry, like the Italians, the Austro-Hungarians. Here you're going to see the Anzacs, so the Australia and New Zealand. And this is one of the vehicles actually that was put together. This was a project done in or finished within the past year. It is a mounted MG. It was completely made from scratch, basically, by volunteers here at the museum, which is pretty sick, because if you look at it, it looks super good, as it was brand new, because it is. Here's some of the Ottoman troops. We're going to see those definitely in the map. Sinai. You can say it however you want. I'll say it in the original Arabic way. Some of the artillery. I love artillery, and because I actually wanted to be part of the Lebanese military as an artilleryman within the artillery brigade. However, that didn't pan out too well. And here we're going to see some of the artillery that was used, and some of the grading cells that they had for artillerymen to be able to use them effectively and very quickly in battle. And artillery had a huge impact on World War One. The amount of casualties that were done by the field guns, and also, of course, your mortars, all that kind of stuff. You're going to see how huge these types of rounds are as well. A bit of a monument here for the fallen soldiers, Belgium's defense. See a lot of huge parts of artillery here, and shells that were used. Very very powerful, very very potent, and thankfully they weren't live here. A lot of the super heavy artillery. If you want to qualify Big Bertha as a super heavy artillery, then I'll give it to you, but this is pretty darn huge as well. There's a couple of artillery pieces that are super interesting. Also, some of the Russian World War One and later on used in World War Two. I believe there was a 105mm artillery pieces. Extremely scary just to look at. You see a Focke-Wulf, the Red Baron's Focke-Wulf. You can get these pre-order in Battlefield 1. However, I'm not a pre-order kind of guy, and I strongly urge you not to do so. But here we go. Looking at some of the... So this is a 149 millimeter gun. Mostly artillery pieces. Here there are a few field guns, as we saw in the beginning. A 105 millimeter. And there's a mix. There's some French artillery. There is some German artillery. And it's really nice to see these kinds of parts still this well preserved. So the team at the museum definitely putting a lot of work in this. And you see this, it resembles a lot the design of the artillery piece that you have in Battlefield 1, where you try to go and shoot the tank with, maybe, you know, try to take out infantry with a HE shell. So you could there we go. So this is a similar design to one that we saw before, where you have the notch up top like you have in BF1. Lower caliber here is 77 millimeter. This is a German cannon. And some of the battle plans here that happened through the push into Belgium, as Antwerp was really cornered. Ghent was an important part to be taken, as well as Liège, because Liège formed the backbone and defensive line of Belgium as for the Belgian defense. And it was a huge railroad crossroads, so it was very important for the Germans in the Schlieffen Plan, designed by the general with that name, to actually take control of Liège. Unfortunately, it took them about 3 weeks to control the city, and it really hampered the German plans because of the Allied reinforcements, the amount of time that they had. And they really needed to use, see how huge this is. This is just the casing. So they really did require to control these major train hubs for transport. If they couldn't, then the Germans wouldn't be able to move into France as quickly as they'd like. This is 270 millimeter siege mortar. This was definitely a tough piece of equipment. I'm not sure if the lower part here is actually part of it, like actually shoots, but as far as I can tell, it is not. And where it all started, who would have thought that a single assassination would boil everything over? And if you go and watch a lot of the, see here, a lot of the plating, this is some of the anti-gas measures that were taken. You see them in BF1 as well. I'm not too sure how it's going to be panned out in terms of the, during the game with artillery, but we'll just have to see. A lot of the gas masks here, some of the later stages as well. We're going to see some of the carbines, of the pistols, and an anti-tank rifle. As far as I know, this is in the game. This is a Russian anti-tank rifle. It is massive, the shots for it is. And there we go, the flares, of course. Even back then, everybody would complain about the MAVs, so they had their own MAV, the flare. Some of the lower caliber pistols, you see the engineer pistol that they have or when you get out of a tank. An AA cannon, of course, stuck next to the Focke-Wulf. And a lot of anti-aircraft cannon here and mortars as well. Pretty darn sick stuff. There's a lot more of these uniforms on the sides, and even back then we about skipped, I don't know, like 60% of them, because there's so much to be seen here. You could probably go around. I knew what I was looking at to some extent, but if you're coming in, then it will probably take you an hour or two to pass through. And here you see where you can pull the lever, open it up, put in the gun. And this is a Renault FT17, and this is your normal tank, your light tank that you're gonna see within Battlefield 1. It's pretty specific to see one of these. This is an interesting tank. I didn't know what this was. I thought on our left we're gonna see more of this tank here. The FT17, what a lot of people call the first true tank as you get in from in front. But this tank, I had no clue what it was. I thought there was an American Walter Christie, but I was very, very wrong. It's a British medium tank Mark A. It's a Whippet. I'm glad I realized this, because this is a pretty sick looking tank. Literally a box, so British beauty engineering. Some of the field guns that were used to defend forts as well, that were built within the fort defense system. See still a lot of the equipment, medical equipment mostly. There are some communication equipment. Here we're gonna see one of the first tanks ever made, but this is a super sick tank. This is a Mark IV male tank, and the cool thing is you can actually look inside of the tank, and you see how everything is so cramped. You have some relatively large space, but imagine having the crew inside of it and really being having to work with your tank mates as well, to run everything correctly, to sit near an engine as well. You see here up front, if we're gonna zoom back just to see, imagine this tank roaring at you at, well, snail spaces really in World War One, but really it pushing towards you. Here we come in. This is a bust of Peter the Great. Very interesting character, built St. Petersburg. His son couldn't live up to his expectations of what he's done, but that's basically it here. This is a very special part of the tour within the Russian Empire, really, and it shows General Mannerheim, his clothing, and a lot of other equipment that was used by the generals and staff and such within the Russian military. And a lot from the Russian family and the Cossacks here. But that's basically it. There's a lot more to be shown. However, not all of it is really relevant to Battlefield 1, which we're really trying to put the video together in a way that it really pertains to BF1. And hopefully this has been enlightening for you. I really hope that you go to a local military museum. Let's say, if you're near Vienna, if you're near Berlin, if you're near Paris, or even if you're here in Belgium or in the UK, in London, definitely go and visit them. Small entrance fees mostly. They all help in restoration of and keeping these kinds of things really intact for as long as possible. Preserving part of human history, but a terrible part of human history as well. Anyways, that'll have to wrap it up. If anything, the BF1 beta is going to be out very, very soon, so be sure check it out on twitch.tv/MiloshTheMedic, and follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/MiloshTheMedic. I'm going to be streaming a lot of BF1 beta and talking more about the esports and competitive side, as opposed to the history side here. So hope to see you on there. Thanks for listening, and I guess I'll see you on the battlefield. Bye bye.